Hi, this is Dan from Tiny Home Builders, and today we're going to be doing a product review for the Xtend Climb telescoping ladders. But before I dive into the specifics of this particular ladder, let's talk about ladders in general. First off, if you're building a tiny house or doing any major construction project, you're likely going to need multiple ladders on your build site. And the reason you're going to need multiple ladders is because there are different types of ladders, and those types do certain jobs really well and other jobs not so well. So let's go through some of the types. Probably the most common type out there is the A-frame ladder. Now the A-frame ladder is great for doing anything where you don't have a surface to lay the ladder up against. This ladder is a freestanding ladder, so you can stand it up in the middle of the room. It doesn't need to be resting up against anything. And that's really important if you're fixing a fan or installing a light where you don't have a surface to put the ladder up against. The problem or the downside to A-frame ladders is first off, when they're folded up, they don't get any smaller. They don't get any shorter. They're the same height if they're folded up or if they're set up. They kind of get a little heavy as they start to get bigger. This is a 6-foot ladder. We have an 8-foot ladder, and then we also have a 12-foot A-frame ladder. And the 12-foot A-frame ladder is it gets really wide at the base. And like I said, it gets really heavy to move around because you're moving essentially two ladders together every time you move it. Another type of ladder that we use is an extension ladder. So when we want to get to a height that goes beyond what our A-frame ladders do, then we start pulling out the extension ladder. Now the extension ladder is not a freestanding ladder. It has to be resting up against something. And it folds up a little bit smaller, like this one folds up to the nothing. You don't save anything when you fold it up except in the width. The extension ladder is actually two pieces, and so when it's folded up, those pieces overlap each other, and so the size of the ladder becomes half of what its maximum size is. So if you buy a 16-foot ladder, it folds up to about 8 feet. But again, it needs to be resting up against something, but the fact that the ladder only consists of one side, not two sides like this, it's quite a bit lighter. But again, it doesn't fold up. Like folding up in half is nice, but on a 16-foot ladder, you still have an 8-foot section of ladder that you have to move around. And that can be kind of difficult depending on where you're trying to put the ladder. Another ladder type that we have is a folding ladder. And what a folding ladder is, it's basically someone said, hey, we've got this A-frame ladder and we've got extension ladders. Why don't we make the A-frame such that it will just open up and become an extension ladder? And it's a pretty good idea, except that it just gets too heavy. We have a folding ladder, and if I want the extension ladder capability, I just get the extension ladder. I don't get the folding ladder. If I want the A-frame ladder, I just get the A-frame ladder. So I have all the ladders, so I'm not going typically and getting that ladder just because to have the strength of two ladders, this is fiberglass. It has a ladder on one side. The back is not really a ladder. It's just there to support the main ladder. So this isn't too heavy, but when you have a ladder that, an A-frame ladder that essentially has to have the ladder on both sides, fiberglass, they don't make extension ladders in fiberglass, or they're not as common, I should say. The folding ladder is just too heavy. So I don't typically use that ladder. Now another type of ladder that we have not had in our arsenal of ladders until recently is a telescoping ladder. Now when I first saw a telescoping ladder, I was really interested in the concept. I think it's a really neat idea. It's like an extension ladder, except instead of only having two pieces that fold over each other, each rung essentially collapses down into the rung below it so that you end up getting this really small package. This is a 15.5-foot ladder. You can't stand on the very top of it, but when it's fully extended, it's 15.5 feet, and it collapses down to 3 feet. That's pretty darn impressive if you ask me. That makes for some interesting value propositions because you can now move this ladder around. Like when I have an extension ladder, it's kind of a pain for me to move my extension ladder. I have a 6-foot bed on my truck. The ladder sticks out. I have to strap it down. I don't have a rack for the top of my truck. So moving ladders is not something that I look forward to doing. I've moved this ladder around quite a bit in the last couple days, and it's so easy. I just throw it in the back of my truck. I don't even have to think about it. So that's just a really quite awesome feature. But not only is it great for storage and transportation, but it's also the small size makes it really easy to get in and put it someplace where you're going to use it. If I needed to have an extension ladder inside a house, I would even a smaller extension ladder, the smallest it's going to get is 8 feet. I have to negotiate this 8-foot length into the house and kind of like try to twist that around and then stand it up in the spot where I need it. It's kind of a pain. I mean, I'm not going to lie and say that I haven't hit a few things over with the back of the ladder or done some damage with that. So again, it's not something that I look forward to, getting a ladder in a tight space. But we set this up inside of a tiny house just this last weekend, and placing it someplace, you can bring it into the house in its compacted form, so it's super easy to move around. You get it where you want it to go, and then you slide it up and make it the length that you want it. So that's some really cool features of a ladder. When you're transporting this ladder, they give you this nice little handle down here. You don't want to try to pick it up from the top, because as you try to pick it up from the top, it's going to want to set itself up and kind of extend. And so they give you this little strap to hold it together, but again, you're going to want to carry it from the bottom. When you're ready to set it up, you drop the strap down, and then I put my foot on the bottom rung just to hold it in place, grab here and slide up. Now you want to start from the bottom when you're doing this, because if you don't extend it up all the way, then you have these top rungs collapsed here, which is they're out of the way because they're at the top. If you started at the top where it's easiest, you might be inclined to do that. What's going to happen is all these rungs, all these stored rungs are going to be down at the bottom, and you're going to have to step over them. So that's not the best experience. And also, it is stronger at the bottom. These are much thicker at the bottom compared to what's at the top. And so you want to put your weight on these thicker ones, not these top ones that are really meant just to support you and give you balance when you get to the top. So when you slide this up, it's got these little locks here. Now these locks are eventually going to move into position to where you'll see a green dot, which will confirm to you that it's locked in place and it's safe to hold on to. These green dots, at first when I got this, I was like, why are the green dots not showing up? Well, I realized afterwards that you have to slide up the next rung just a little bit to get the green dots to show up. And at first I thought that was a mistake. I thought that was kind of a design flaw. But then as I started using it, I realized that there's a safety mechanism built in to prevent you from crushing your hands. And I'll show you that when we go to collapse this thing. So I'm just going to grab the next one, and then so on and so forth all the way up to the top. When you're done with the ladder, it's time to collapse it back down to its portable size. Now, when you're doing this, you want to be especially careful that you don't accidentally crush your fingers. There's pieces that are coming together, and you want to make sure your fingers aren't in the wrong spot. Now, the people at Xtend Climb kind of designed it such that you're less likely to have your fingers in the wrong spot, and they give you some allowances to make sure that things are less likely to happen, but it's still a possibility. So you want to pay attention. You don't want to just kind of do this willy-nilly. So let's start with the first off, to close this down, you're going to disengage the locks by pushing these pieces in. These pieces are designed for your thumbs. And so again, this is another example of where they've kind of designed it to be less likely to hurt yourself, is you don't want to have your fingers up in this area because this is going to come down. And so these thumb pieces are designed so that your hands are kind of automatically out of the way facing down, because these are designed for your thumbs. It's not to say you still couldn't accidentally put your finger up here, and we'll show you how they kind of account for that as well, but they've designed it to make that less likely. I've seen other brands that have the buttons underneath here. You're putting the fingers are out of the way of this sliding down, but I felt like the buttons down here kind of led people to push like this, and then you're putting your fingers up where the piece is going to slide down. So that to me seemed like it was a little bit more dangerous. So we're going to go ahead and push this in, and it slides down. Now you see that it stopped here, so that if my finger was up here for some reason, it would have stopped and not crushed my finger. So again, this is just another little bit of a safety feature that they've designed into this thing to stop you from crushing your fingers. This is actually why when you're setting it up, earlier I mentioned when you're setting it up, you don't see the green dots until the next rung is extended all the way up, or at least to this break point. This is exactly why, that those brakes or those locks kick in to stop you from crushing your fingers. This will close up when this closes up. So your fingers are going to be well away from this area when this closes up. So watch this. So again, my fingers are out of the way. Even if they were in the way, this would have stopped it from getting crushed. This closed up when my fingers were well away from that. So so they've done some good things. Now I don't think it does it on this bottom one. I think this one will close up, and I don't know if this one stops. I think this one goes all the way down because it's the last one. So this is the one where you'd want to be a little bit more careful. So this one, it didn't have that little break because there's no rung underneath it that's gonna prevent it or allow it to close up later on. So that one you just want to be a little bit more careful than the others. And when you're done, you go ahead and put the strap on it, and it's ready to move. If you're looking to pick yourself up a telescoping ladder, I do recommend the Xtend Climb brand. Like I said, I've tried other brands. I don't know the names of those off the bat, but I have been not impressed. I don't know that Xtend Climb is the only company that makes a quality ladder, because again, I haven't tried them all, but I do know for a fact there are brands out there that make a non-quality ladder. So unless you're willing to try some and send them back, I definitely would just would stick with this personally. These are sold at Sherwin-Williams stores, their website, xtendandclimb.com, and then also Amazon. But again, be careful when you go to Amazon. You know, there's a lot of different companies out there that are making these, and you just want to make sure that you don't buy the wrong one or you make your decisions purely based on price.